Welcome on today's webinar. I am Dusty. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Co-Work Health. I have once again Dr. John Kaler with me as well. He is the founder of a company called OcDoc1, among many other things. I'll introduce him here in a second, but just give everybody here a little bit of context. We do have obviously some returning attendees, which is always awesome. But just for the people that don't know us, I am the founder of Co-Work Health. We are a platform to help manage your OcMed relationships, including your OcMed billing. We are not a service provider. We are a software and a platform to help organize all that. Our platform helps you get paid a lot faster, a lot easier, with a lot less stress. Go check us out at coworkhealth.io. And as mentioned, Dr. John Kaler has a company called OcDoc1, which helps give you standardized guidance on how to treat OcMed and work comp visits, which is awesome. So he'll talk more about that as well. Let me introduce him real quick. So Dr. John Kaler, he's board certified in occupational medicine. He's been in the space for over 40 years now. He founded a urgent care chain called Physicians Immediate Care. It got to 56 clinics when he sold out back in 2022. And when they did, they had more than 10,000 OcMed clients, which is pretty awesome. He's also a founding board member of the Urgent Care Association. And as mentioned a couple of times, he has since founded OcDoc1 as well. Dr. Kaler, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dusty. Glad to be here.
All right. So the order of events, we're going to walk through, like the title says, we're going to go through a few FAQs, things that we've heard on previous webinars, things we've heard from talking with thousands of urgent care groups across the years. So we'll walk through what we think we hear the most, give you our response there. While we do that, please use the chat to ask your questions. The remainder of the time at the end, we're just going to take live Q&A. We'll do our best to answer everything. If we don't know something, we'll tell you that as well. But without further ado, let's step through some of the questions here. First question, and this is, we hear this, we get this question all the time. What's the most important thing to consider when trying to create a successful OcMed program? Dr. Kaler, what do you think?
Okay, so this is actually an easy question to answer. By far and away, orders of magnitude, most important thing is provider performance. You have to consider, the most important thing to consider is provider performance. If you do not have provider performance, I'll define that in a minute. Provider performance, you will simply be a revolving door. I call it the revolving door syndrome. So everyone has an OcMed program. Talk to folks that say, yeah, we got an OcMed program, and if you ask a few more questions, you find out it's very likely a revolving door situation where you lose clients as fast as you gain the clients. And the way that you lose clients is when providers don't provide the care along the lines of the issues of importance to employers. Okay, so that I can define later as well if you want. But provider performance is providers are willing and able. This isn't a putting a shoulder back in or sewing a tendon issue. This is four things, the big four: lost time, unnecessary OSHA recordables, intuitive common sense work restrictions, and communication, which is, I call it first phone calls. So those four, and all those are administrative issues. Those are not issues that relate to their ability, their training in wherever they were trained. It's not a training issue. It's a willingness. That's what it is. It's an engagement and willingness issue to learn the paradigm of workers' comp OcMed. So far and away, don't even try it. Don't even waste your time if you don't have your providers engaged, on board, willing, and pulling on the same rope with you, because you got to do this together. That said, there's never been a greater opportunity to OcMed than now. Now is the best time I've ever seen in all these years. Why? Because your competition, everyone on this phone call right now, I'm promising you, your competition is low and falling fast, okay? Because anyone who is not laser beam focused on provider performance is losing ground right now and will continue to do so.
Awesome. And I agree with everything Dr. Kaler said there. The thing that I add is on the admin side, so taking care of your customers is basic stuff, right? So that communication piece, he did mention that. But how do you communicate with them? Do you make it easy for them to ask you questions? Do they get the results quickly in an easy way? Can they pay their bills in an easy, modern fashion? So all those things tie together, right? Competent providers, engaged providers, and then taking care of your clients on the other side of it as well.
Well, that's exactly right, Dusty. But it's the most important. The question was the most important. So
Yeah.
all the surrounding orbs of performance, yes, definitely everything does it. Portal communication, giving them their absolutely, because that will otherwise it'll be a very large thorn. Okay, but provider performance is what will cause them to leave most quickly. Okay, yeah.
Yep. Love that you focus on the most for sure. Love it. Okay. Next question. What's the most important thing to consider when trying to sell your Aquamed services?
Okay, all right. Another easy question, actually. Focus, 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 and after that, more focus. Okay, so here's what happens. You get someone's, okay, I'll sell those services, and they might be a rad tech, an MA, a nurse, somebody who is part of the company, and they'll say, hey, I'll do Monday and Wednesday, I'll go out and do it. That's not focus, okay? And focus, dedicated, committed. So I prefer somebody full-time. That's all they do is they sell. And the reason they have to be focused is if you think about it, you can make 30 sales calls in one day. Okay? 30 sales calls. You're starting out brand new, got no customers, no nothing. You make 30 phone calls, you get 5 appointments. The next day you make 30 phone calls, you get 5 more appointments. Next day you make 30 phone calls, get 5 more. That's 15 appointments next week. Okay? That's a lot of work. That's a lot of follow-up. Okay? That's a lot of time consumption. How can you possibly keep track of these accounts and trying to nurse them along to matriculation into your organization as a customer when you're shooting x-rays or checking patients in or answering problem phone calls because you're in operations? Okay, so focus. They need to be dedicated. Now that costs money. That's your investment. So you get provider performance done. You want to invest. You invest in a good salesperson. Some of the sales folks, they actually have a lot of relationships already. So if they're very well versed and been successful selling Aquamed services, they know all the vernacular. That's great. But if you take somebody brand new who only has sales, quote unquote, they sold vacuum cleaners or they sold something, they were in sales, that's not sufficient. They have to develop the vernacular. And so something like OcDoc One, which has all the vernacular, and you could watch all the videos or a lot of the videos and learn and understand all the terminology. Because if you go into a meeting, you don't know what OSHA is, you're toast. I mean, absolutely toast. If you don't know what lost time is, you don't know what a recordable is, they will completely write you off in that moment, because you have to have the vernacular. You have to have an understanding of the pain points that they are now experiencing. So I'd say first thing, focus. Second thing is, again, a subset of focus on the big 4: lost time, unnecessary recordables, common sense work restrictions, and communication. Those 4. And for the provider's part of the communication is first phone calls when you call the company, give them a little rendition on every first injury visit. It's so easy. I could give you one right now in 15 seconds. That's how easy it is.
Yeah, I love the overarching theme for both responses so far. You're both talking about basically either do it or don't, right? Like jump in, you got to commit, you got to invest, or don't do it. You can't just kind of go in there halfway. All right, jump to the next one here. It's kind of the same question about 2 different things, but can DEM or prepackaged pharmaceuticals be a profit center?
Yes, it's actually DME, durable medical equipment.
Yep.
So durable medical equipment would include boots, wrist supports, back supports, hinge knee supports, ankle lace-ups, orthopedic post-op shoes, all that, tennis elbow straps. That's DME. Absolutely can be profitable. Just to give you one example, and we were doing this for over 30 years very successfully, we would charge $260 for our highly efficacious, clinically beneficial back support, lumbar support, charge $260. We would be reimbursed $140, and we would pay our supplier $40. We netted $100 on every back support. Now tell me if that's not a gold mine. I mean, that's when I started out in 87. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I knew good medical care. At least I had that. I had to learn all this med stuff, and so I survived. But I knew early on, I said to myself, John, you've got 4 walls in this building. You have an x-ray machine. You have plumbing. You have all parking lot, all this stuff, all these staff, all these costs. Why wouldn't you do everything you can possibly do for your patient in this building so that you can actually survive? And I wasn't, you know, it was a very tough slog, okay? At the beginning, like most clinics, I was de novo, brand new. I was 29 years old. And so I wanted to do DME because if my patient needs a back support or a wrist support, well, I'm going to sell it to them, okay? And I did, and we were highly profitable. And if anybody has what you view as roadblocks to that, by all means, reach out to Dusty or myself. We can connect you to the guy that we work with. I've worked with for over 30 years. His name is Sean Blackmore. Some of you know him. Some of you work with him. He's a great guy. Amazing company, the way he operates his company. He will bend over backwards for you. He'll do anything for you. He'll do crazy things for you. But he can help you understand the correct CPT codes, which are also in OcDoc 1. I know there's OcDoc 1 clients on this call that OcDoc 1, if you type in CPT in Quick Check, you get all the relevant CPT codes to urgent care medicine. And so under DME as well, you can query that and get the codes for the DME. And the DME is also in all the guidelines. There's 390 some guidelines. Each guideline where there is a DME suggested by my guideline, the DME and the code for it is right there in a video on how to put it on. So we're talking about easy turnkey. On the prepackaged pharma side, also have a great guy. Worked with Destry Setzer for many years with Proficient RX. And so prepackaged pharmaceuticals are trickier, okay? And the reason they're trickier is because the pharmacy lobby in some states will not permit the dispensing of prescription medications without a pharmacist, okay? And so it's complicated. But you can still dispense OTCs, and we were dispensing tens of thousands of bottles a year of OTCs. Everybody coming in would get a bottle of Tylenol and a bottle of an NSAID, either naproxen or Advil at the non-recordable level. And so they walked out with 2 bottles in their hand. They feel like they're being treated, which they are. They get their DME, which that's the one-stop shop model. If you don't, I would say not as important as provider performance, but one-stop shop is really important as well, because they don't want to have all these different bills and reimbursements and hassles, having to go to a pharmacy for this and a DME company down the road for the back support and all that. So you get it one-stop shop at the clinic. So it's highly profitable. It would be beneficial at break even. It would still be beneficial at break even because it helps support your program so much with the satisfaction of the injured worker and the company. Never had one single complaint about the cost of either the DME or the pre-pack pharma. Not one complaint on cost. And you would think with $260 on that bill for a back support, we would get complaints, and we never did. It's like, oh my gosh. But they want the patients treated. They want them back on light duty. If they have a back support on, it's an instant pain relief. And I got videos on that in OcDoc 1. It's instant pain relief. And relative rest for the injured structure is what you do with DME. That's what it's for. Give relative rest to that structure. Anybody that doesn't get that doesn't understand biophysiology. Pre-pack pharma, you probably might want to dispense other things. You dispense amoxicillin, Z-Pak, et cetera, also profitable, because these bottles only cost you between $2 and $6. You can sell it at 15 to 20 cash. People will pay cash gladly for their pre-packed pharma in the clinic. So they have to go to a pharmacy. Who wants to drive another mile down the road, get in a parking lot, then get in line at the pharmacy? I mean, you know about lines at pharmacies, they're not rapid fire, let me tell you. Okay.
All right. Awesome. And apologies for the typo on the screen there. It's my bad. And the Anchorman just read exactly what I saw. I know that's DME. Next one. How do you fight acuity degradation?
Okay, defining it. Obviously, acuity is severity, kind of a severity. So the severity of things we treat is degrading in clinics, meaning we're referring so much more out. So how do you fight unnecessary referrals to specialists, unnecessary referrals to the ER? So what that amounts to is training the providers to be comfortable, in particular, with eye injuries, fingertip injuries, and fractures. Those are the 3 biggies in my experience, and I've had access to multi-state national data for this, and it is progressively deteriorating. In other words, the codes for those procedures, eye injuries where you remove a foreign body, you debride a rust ring, you treat a corneal abrasion, you treat a corneal chemical abrasion from a chemical. Those all have codes, and those codes are degrading. So you don't code for that because you didn't treat that. You referred it to ophthalmology, or a fingertip, referred it to a hand surgeon, orthopedic. You don't get the code for suturing that fingertip. It's an open, tough fracture. It's worth $600 easily, and they're the easiest things to repair with simple interrupted sutures. It's kind of, we're afraid of our own shadows. And this is a no-fault situation. I'm not criticizing anybody or anything. I'm simply saying, here's where we are today. Many providers working in urgent care centers did not have trauma experience. They didn't have trauma training. They didn't rotate through an ER. They didn't rotate through ortho. They never treated an injury in their entire training. I mean, come on, like, it's true. It's not for all of them. There's some PAs that are rock star amazing, but they've had experience, or they had the right context in which they could be trained. Maybe they knew they were focusing on ortho, and they did a lot of ortho and ER stuff. But anyway, lacerations are now being referred out, and that's hideous, beyond hideous. It's beyond belief. It's kind of, it gives me, I don't know, gives me twitches in my arm. It's like, oh my gosh. So you fight it with training, and that means you might have workshops with pig's feet for suturing, workshops where you have an opti-spud and you remove foreign bodies off of a hard-boiled egg after the shell's removed, because that's like a corneal surface. You can practice suturing, pig's feet. I guess that would be the closest thing you can get to a fingertip, but it's still simple interrupted suturing. You put the fingertips back together. Tools like Octoc 1, and there might be some other ones, but Octoc 1 takes them right through it with guidelines, step by step. Do this, then do this, then do that, and with video support. So it's pretty comprehensive, and that would be an example of a web-based scalable tool that could be used to fight acuity degradation. I do know it works because we have over 3,000 providers using the website, and there's a high level of appreciation for what's in there, to the point where some providers watch videos on their days off because they want to learn the material. And these videos are 2 to 6 minutes in length, so they can learn very quickly with it.
All right, great. Only a couple more questions that we have queued up, and then we'll take some live Q&A if we have any. Feel free to use the chat to start throwing your questions in there, and we'll get to them. All right, next question. What is driving the low profitability of urgent care centers?
Yeah, tragically, it's multifactorial. And I kind of feel bad for my compatriots in the industry, because you've got acuity degradation with low billings per visit, because trauma and procedures and injuries are much more enhancing revenue wise, okay, with very little more work from a provider. So it's really lucrative. So acuity degradation is one of them. Another one is wage inflation. I mean, rad techs, get this. I heard of a clinic in New York somewhere. I know where it is. I'm going to leave it at that. In New York State, that they had an ad out for rad techs at $80 an hour, and it took them about 2 weeks to get one person to respond to that ad. So think about it. You have to have X-ray to make money, because X-ray revenue is fantastic, and you can't treat injuries without X-ray. So rad tech shortages and heavy duty wage competition with health systems, that your best shot is getting rookies out of training for rad techs. Or there's alternative pathways developing now. Thank God Almighty for that. That if you're in a state where you can do an alternative pathway, where you can have an MA go get some positional training to position properly and shoot certain sets of X-rays, maybe with or without a physician or APP pushing the button on the X-ray machine. In other words, crack that nut. I would beg you to crack that nut. For the sake of your profitability, you will have to crack the rad tech nut. And wage inflation is inexorable. You'll simply have to raise your fees where you can and ask for contract increases. But I'll tell you right now, from my experience, that we were able to get top payments from places like United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we demonstrated our CPT codes, our procedure codes, that we weren't simply a glorified triage center for injuries. We showed them we were different. We do real urgent care. We had all the CPT codes, all the data, and we got 10% increases across the board from both of them. And so that's a big deal. 10%. Think about that multiplied by $100 million, and what do you got? So that's for real. And that happened. And I am a witness to it because we did it. So you want to do injuries, all this fits together like a glove. It's like you just can't be lazy. That's the unfortunate thing. Well, I'm just going to set up an urgent care center, we'll treat some sore throats. You'll go broke. Okay. It's way too expensive. So you have to get on it with these things. So driving low profitability, wage inflation, lack of injury care, lack of Ahmed as a hybrid model, because we did that. That was 40 million of our revenue per year was workers' comp. And so that's a lot of revenue. It's sitting right in your backyard. Not one clinic in America doesn't have, you could generate 20 visits a day of work comp. I don't care where you are. I do not care where you are. 20 visits a day just by doing it. And if you do the math on 20 visits a day, it's astronomical.
All right. One more question, and then we'll do a lot of Q&A. How does OCDOC 1 specifically manage the fact that each state can have its own work comp laws?
Okay, that's a good question. So OCDOC 1 is clinical decision support tool for providers treating injuries. So an injury is an injury is an injury, no matter what state it's in. Yes, there are work comp laws, but those work comp laws are administrative in nature. They relate to filling out a first injury report document, which is state mandated. That has nothing to do with sewing a cut or treating a lumbar strain. Clinically, the clinical part of it. I am acing out the clinical part here with OCDOC 1. We have that aced out completely in OCDOC 1. It solves one massive, huge problem for everyone that uses it. But as far as each state's laws, that's a paperwork issue. That would you discover what paperwork they require, just do the paperwork they require. But state laws don't say you can or can't treat a lumbar strain or a rib fracture or a corneal abrasion. Okay, that's not really, they don't force you, not yet at least. Okay, workers' comp insurance carriers could start getting into your hair about it, at which time you would simply tell them, okay, we're going to go out for bid, and they'll probably change their tune, because we should be practicing the highest level of our medical licenses, whatever license that is. We should try to practice the highest level of that license, and that means we can do lacerations, fracture care, dislocations, etc., because our licenses allow us to do so. And our medical directors, by the way, should allow us to do so. So medical directors need to buck up on all this too, because they lead the show on the provider. So some medical directors, I have firsthand experience, some medical directors, God bless, I'm not trying to throw stones, but they're afraid of these procedures themselves. And so if the medical director themselves is afraid of it, of doing injury care, then what's that going to say for the rest of the providers? And I know I collected rock star APP providers. I'm talking rock stars who wanted to come to my urgent care and work for me because they said they won't let me do anything over there. They won't let me do anything over there, meaning they want the beast fed. They want the health system fed all these cases. They don't want the urgent care doing it. Now that's a generalization. It's not true on all of them. If you set things up right, everybody should want the most that could be done in urgent care be done in urgent care. That's our value proposition of the healthcare ecosystem. And then we refer what needs to be referred. And everybody should be happy with that, because I can tell you right now, those orthopods do not want their waiting room filled with nonsense stuff. Okay. But that's why they've had to create orthopedic urgent cares to compete against you and us, because they get flooded with all these dinky cases, and the orthopods can't, it's not a good operative case. What do they do with it? And so it's wasting their time filling up their office time. You know what I mean? So they get PAs and nurse practitioners to work in their ortho urgent care to offload that, and it becomes competition against urgent care.
All right. Well, now's the time for some Q&A, if we have any. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, so we'll give it a minute or two and see if anybody wants to be
Let
brave.
me follow up on something while we're waiting for questions to come in. No question's a bad question, by the way. Please ask your question, no matter what it is. We want you to be successful. So on the line of acuity degradation issues, I had a bonus program in for my providers based on their injury care revenue. And so this can be done. You can base it on CPT codes. You can figure it out, right? It's math. Production done, money comes in, share it with the provider. That's the grand scheme. It's an absolute complete no-brainer. No one wants to do it. They do it. There's some that do it, but generally speaking, no one wants to do it. And I'm very disappointed. I had PAs making $3,000 a month extra. That's per month extra. That'll pay most or all of a house payment. Okay. And I was happy as a clam. I had PAs that were doing shoulder reductions and tendon repairs, and they were doing wonderful work, all the fingertip stuff. They were good at it. They had, 10, 15, 25 years of experience. Why can't they do it? In fact, the PA profession was started at Duke University when medics who were in the Vietnam War came back from the Vietnam War and said, look, we have these fantastic skills. We can suture to beat the band. We can treat all these fractures because the surgeons in Vietnam were too busy doing aortas, okay, and brains. We were doing extremities, and we're good at it. And so PA profession will start at Duke University, centered on injury care. Okay, let's get that back. Okay, injury care, we got to do it. And you got to incentive. Why not incentive them? Because they're going to say, what's in it for me? Like, why should I sew this 10-inch laceration? I'll just say I'm too busy at the clinic. I got too many sore throats waiting. I'm just referring it to the ER. Whereas if you had a bonus program, say, I want that 10-inch laceration. After I'll do a running horizontal mattress, I'll be done in 15 minutes. They'll develop their skills to sew fast. And these clinics that start dropping, they drop things off under the guise of, gee, I could treat 3 sore throats while one of these other things. Well, here's what the problem with that is. The answer to it is do the procedure faster. That's the answer. It's not stop doing it. It's just do it faster. Get good at it. Get in a pig's feet. Do some horizontal mattress on a pig's foot. I got a video in OcDoc 1 showing I sewed a 3-inch pig's foot laceration by the clock under 4 minutes. On the clock, on video, running horizontal mattress, and boom, done in less than 4 minutes. It's a 45-minute ordeal for a lot of providers right now. No wonder they want to ditch it like, water off a duck. Okay. And who's going to watch no one's watching what they're referring out. So I recommend a bonus incentive system based on CPT codes. All those CPT codes are in OcDoc 1. If you're not in OcDoc 1, you still want the list, I'll get it to you. You can email me, jkalermd@ocdoc1.com, or Dusty, get it to Dusty, he'll get it to me, your request, and we'll help you out. We want to help you out. We want you to be successful. And so a bonus system, if they're collecting $1,000 extra a month, try to pay monthly. You got to pay monthly. $1,000 a month, that becomes very attractive for their college education fund savings, their bass boat savings, a new car save. I mean, this is real money, and you got to share it with them if they'll do the procedures.
Awesome, great additional detail there. We got one question here in the chat. So regarding ortho urgent cares, they are very prominent in certain competitive landscapes. Why would an employer want an on-site ancillary or OC health clinic when an ortho urgent care is right down the street? What would your selling points be?
Okay, well, as always, the big 4: lost time, unnecessary recordables, intuitive common sense work restrictions, and first count phone calls. That's the big 4. So if you sell that straight up, you don't have to say anything negative against the ortho urgent care because they already know how bad it is at the ortho urgent care because they're whiffing on the big 4. And they're feeding the beast, and they know that. These companies are not dumb. They know they do not want to use an orthopedic clinic because they know that the in-house services just get filled up. I'm talking all the imaging, all the specialty stuff. The cost goes way up. The lost time goes through the roof. The patient placation goes through the roof. Not all. Some orthopods are rock stars. I have to generalize on this call because it's a nationwide phone call. That generally speaking, the costs go way up. Everything bad goes up. Every metric in work comp that's not good or not favorable goes up with any specialist setting, without exception. Okay, so that's why they want to use you because you're a standalone clinic. You're not feeding a beast. You are able to do it quickly, get them in on a walk-in basis. You should be easier to work with. And if your providers have aced out the big 4, all you got to do is say, look, our providers are engaged. They are on point on lost time. We don't take people off work unless absolutely clinically necessary. We provide work restrictions that make sense to you, nothing more, nothing less. We don't overdo restrictions. We provide OTC medications at the time of service at the non-recordable level, which helps save you OSHA recordables. We call you on all first count visits. Boom, I just sold the account right there. Boom, that's it. Sold.
Awesome. Another question.
Oh, by the way, one other point. Sorry.
Yeah.
If they ever tell, this came up on prior calls. If they ever say, "Oh, we have a group, we're satisfied with them, we're going to stay with them," you don't say, "Okay, fine, keep my information, call me later." No, it won't work. That's not good. I discovered this years ago. You have to say this. Well, okay, that's great, but if there's one thing that you would change about your current occupational medicine provider, what would it be? Oh my gosh! Boom! They'll start telling you all kinds of stuff. You say, "Well, we do that." Or we fix that, or we don't, like I had one, they said, "Well, we're really satisfied with Dr. Jones. He's right here in town. He treats the president of our company. Been with him for 40 years. And I said, "Oh, that's great." Because I knew I couldn't break that loose. That's not happening. All right. The president's doctor, 40 years, family doc in town, right? Not happening. So I said, "Well, Dr. Jones obviously is probably not working evenings and weekends and holidays." "Oh, no, he doesn't." "Okay, good. Hey, let's work up a relationship. We'll get an account all set up and you can use us when he's not available." Guess who got the account after a while? We did. Okay. So you always have to say, what would you change about that provider? And they'll start telling you stuff that really can help you, because they'll say, "Well, I wish they were open evenings and weekends." Like, we are, and then they'll start using you, then you can get the account.
Great. I threw both our emails in the chat as well. So if you do want to ping either one of us about any follow-up, just look in the chat there and you can grab our email addresses. All right, one more question came in. What's your advice for tethering client expectations for the eventual OSHA recordable when those companies expect no recordables, even modified duty or no lost time?
Okay. It's a free country currently, and they have free speech to say anything outrageous they want to say. Okay. Like zero this and zero that. I say, that's great. It's great to shoot for the sky. Okay. But reality is that if the laceration needs sutured, we're suturing it, and that's categorically recordable. Yeah. You have to understand that. So we will not be able to get you to zero recordables, and nobody anywhere can get you to zero recordable. You can say that very professionally, starting there, and say, well, what we will do for you is, for example, OTC medications on contusions, sprains, and strains. We'll give you over-the-counter meds, non-recordable. Boom, first 2 visits. OcDoc 1, right there. Boom, done. Their eyes will get big. When you say that, their eyes will start getting big. And then you'll say, okay, another thing we can save you recordables, we provide artificial tears for corneal abrasions and corneal foreign body removals, not antibiotics. Why is that? Because it's not necessary. In fact, it can retard corneal healing. So we don't give antibiotics. It's not recordable. So artificial tears are not recordable. Therefore, we can treat the majority of your eye injuries non-recordably. Okay. And they'll like that too. And then you can say, and another thing too is, because we're conservative and don't refer things out very often, only with strict criteria, when it's clinically absolutely necessary, that we keep more things in-house. Because as you know, when they go to a specialist, they're going to get a lot more recordables, lost time, et cetera. And so this is our philosophy, where we will keep them in-house. And we set up work restrictions. They're intuitive, they're necessary, nothing more, nothing less. For example, if someone has a finger laceration, we don't take the whole arm out of commission. Okay, we simply might say avoid power gripping with the left hand or something like that. Okay, but we're not going to take them off work. And in fact, we will give them restrictions all the way down to sedentary desk work. So they can come back to your factory, sit there at a desk, answer the phone, watch safety videos, or watch security cameras. Okay, so they'll also like to hear that. So their expectations can be very high. So what you want to do is engage, say something like yes, but. So don't ever say no. Don't say that. Why do humans like to say no? Like, no, 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 no. People like to say no. Don't ever in the sales setting say no. Simply say, yes, but you know what? You have to pay us $40,000. So you can still say yes, even though the answer is no, right? So you would say, yes, absolutely, we can help you with those recordables. Yes, absolutely, we can help you with lost time. And then go into that rendition that I just gave you about how to talk about it.
Good stuff. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions come through. Probably give everybody, 30 seconds to put their last second question in. Otherwise, as always, appreciate you all jumping on. Dr. Kaler and I will both be at a conference starting this weekend, the Northeastern Regional Urgent Care Association Conference. So if you are going to be there, make sure you stop by and say hi.
Booth
Otherwise,
111. Booth 111. Just come
I don't
by.
even know my booth number. I'm sure I'm close by, so that'll be me. I'll be in the booth, so look for my face.
I'm also
Otherwise,
speaking. I also have I'm giving a talk there too on how to start urgent care, or how to start Ahmed clinic, Ahmed
awesome.
program. Yeah.
Are they recording those by chance? Sounds like a great.
Yeah, they record all of it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good stuff. As always, appreciate y'all jumping on. I'm sure we'll do another one in the future. If you have topic ideas, things you'd like us to discuss and present on, make sure you ping us and let us know what those would be, and we'll do our best to see if we can do them. Otherwise, thanks y'all for jumping on, and thanks Dr. Kaler for joining us.
Okay. Take care. See ya. Have a good one.